Hello there everyone. So in this quick tutorial on Fluent, what we're going to do is to start building some custom shapes. But before we jump into the shapes, I just want to show you how I create those shapes. So here I'm using my favorite image editing software and I have Affinity Designer opened up right now. So what we're doing right here is we have this shape, right? It looks like we have this sharp edge, this cutout edge, and we have this center right here that's actually cut out, including this edge as well. So what's happening right here? Let me just open up the effects and I'll set the opacity back to 100 and you can actually see those shapes right now. So these are called cutters because what they're doing is literally hiding or masking out this white shape underneath. So if I set this back to 0, we're not actually going to see any of them. They're actually there, but their visibility has been set to 0. So if I turn off some of these, you can see what I'm doing right here. So I'm turning this off like so, turn off all these edges, and I can actually create any kind of interesting custom shape I want, right? So we can actually, let's go ahead and create this similar type of shape using Fluent and Blender. Again, I'll be giving you access to this file so you can play around with this file and see what kind of interesting shapes you want to create. And let's just jump into Blender. So I've actually opened up Blender and I have not sacrificed the default cube. It's right there, it's right here, it's seeing as hi hello cube. So I'll just hide this. So I'll just be kind of like looking at our reference. We have a cut here, a cut at the center, and then a cut, rectangular cut right here. And we'll be starting from the basics and be, gently pushing everything up in gear. If you have the add-on installed, and if you want to see where you can get the add-on and how to install the add-on, you can check out this video right here at the link. If not, you're good to go. So once you press F, you'll actually have a radial menu that pops up and you can actually see what version of Fluent you're working on. So let's just go ahead and begin. We can right click to exit this, or we can click the end toolbar or end menu and click on Fluent. You basically have the same menu here. For some reason, I kind of like seeing this. So let's just go ahead and work with this one. So the first thing I'll do is to click the creation. And we can just start drawing a rectangular shape right ahead because it's actually on the rectangle tool. If I click on circle, and I right click to show actually a grid, I can just zoom in on this grid. We can actually start drawing a circle shape like so. To reset this, just press the letter R and you've reset this guy. So let's jump over to the rectangle tool and just create a rectangle like so. So now that we have this rectangle, if we kind of like click, this will validate this rectangle and we can begin to push up or down to increase the thickness. So if we drag left or right, this is going to increase the thickness of the shape. So I'll just leave the thickness as this thickness. I can just right click and click on the tick mark to say validate. So this is the shape I have right now. I can just right click again and say validate. Now I have a shape that has a nice bevel attached to it. If I go back to the top view, and you might not actually if you don't like the bevel, all you can do is just increase it. So let's click on this guy and say add bevel width. We can just drag the bevel and you can actually see, let me just zoom in. We can actually see that bevel of this object increasing and decreasing like so. That's awesome. So what we want to do is to create that cut around the edges. So we have a cut here, a cut here, a cut here, and a cut right here at the center. And that's super straight and simple. All we need to do is just click the cut add tool, or if you want, you have to you have to click on the object and then click on cut add, and you can right click and specify where you want to cut. You can start your cut from anywhere. So I'll just start from this edge and just cut this edge, and as soon as I start dragging, this is going to start cutting the shape like so. If I want the shape to just cut through directly, I can just use the shortcut V, and now we've cut that edge. So what happens when we've created a cut? Let's just right click and validate and quit. So we've actually created this cut. So what happens when we actually need to edit this cut that we've created? And also I like to rotate this object to this side. I'll just set it to like 90 degrees like so, and I'll just click over here and just drag this right here at the center, so it's centered. You don't have to have yours centered, it's actually it's just a preference. So what happens when we want to edit this? So to edit, make sure you selected the object and then go to edit. Now we're actually on edit, but we can't actually see our boolean tool. So let's right click, validate and quick, select our object, and just right here we can actually see show booleans. If you also press the F and have the radial menu, it's at the top right here. You'll see the technical display. The one in the middle is the boolean visibility, and now we can see this cutter object. You select the cutter object and click on edit, and now you can actually edit this cutter object. You can use the Blender shortcut keys like the G tool. So if I press G and press Y, it means I'm gonna grab this tool and drag it along the Y axis. So I have a cut right here with the boolean tool. So I'll just click on that, right click and validate and quit. So we have that cut for that edge. So how do we create the other triangular cut? Like so, because it's a triangular cut. How do we create this one? So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Let's click on creation again, and we can actually click on the cut add, but this time around let's just look over here. We have the shape tool, so let's click on shape and let's right click. Now it's not a must to right click, but if you want to. So what you're going to do with the shape tool is you can actually click a point, click another point, click another point, and click this point. When you're ready to validate, just press shift key and left click, and you're good to go. You actually have a cut right here that you can actually use. I'll just use the letter V just to go through that object. And let's just try doing that one more time. And let's validate. So you can actually see one mistake I made right here, and this mistake is that you have to click on the object if you want the tool to cut out of that object. Here we didn't do that, so what it did was create a new separate geometry. We're going to keep that for use, but again let's try to do this properly now. So first click the object, then you can let's use the cut add tool, which is going to bring out this cut. Let's convert this to the shape because we want to draw a shape right here. We can right click if you want to have the grid. So let's click here, and you can actually click away now. So let's do a shift, hold on shift and left click. Now we're actually telling Blender, the Fluent tool is telling Blender that, hey, I want to cut out this edge right here. You can even do a half cut if you want as you drag this left to right. So left is going down, right is going up, and then when you press the shortcut V, it's going to just cut through that object. So let's right click, and there we have this shape right now. So we have this shape. It's actually a nice shape. So how do we cut out this center right here? How do we do that one? So to do that, as simple as well, all we need to do is you guessed it, we just draw a rectangle like so at the center. But we actually noticed something about our rectangle. Our rectangle has this nice corners along the edge. So how do we achieve that nice corner? So let's first do the regular cut. So I'll hit on cut add. On rectangle by default, so I'll just click and drag and draw a rectangular shape without drawing the grid. And this time around, let's go ahead and just drag this till it passes through, or we could just press V to have a clean cut, and then we could just right click, validate and quit. Now we actually have 3 cutter objects like we saw in the initial example. So these 3 cutter objects are the objects that are going to actually show up. So let's go ahead, if we click on our booleans. So if we say show boolean, we can actually see we have 1, 2, and then we have 1 boolean hidden in between this edge right here, which is this boolean tool right here. I think this bevel is a bit too high. So what I'm going to do is just drag this down a little bit. Let's just drag this bevel down for the shape. Let's just drag this down a little bit. Yeah, I think that's super smooth. And what we can also do is to click on this drop down arrow and turn on the cavity, and we can just turn on both, so you can just have a nice cavity shape around here. So now that we've had this, let's see how we can soften the edge of this shape. So let's click on this boolean and then click edit. So now we have edit. Let's right click and go here to the first bevel. So we can just start dragging our shape. So we can just look at this. You can drag to the right to increase the curvature of the edge, basically beveling the shape, or to the left to make it sharp. We can increase the number of segments by right clicking and go into segments, and then when you drag left you can add the segments. So let's right click and validate that edge. So let's right click and say validate and quit, and there you have it. That's our simple tool. Here we actually have the shape, although we might need to edit especially this edge. If we just have a side-to-side comparison, if that's possible, we can actually see that this is kind of like too much. So again, to edit, click on the shape and then say show boolean, click on the boolean, go to edit, or we can even edit it directly. Let's just let me just show you what I mean. So now that we have this boolean object, because that's a Blender object as well, once you just click on show boolean, you can click this object and just drag it. It's just going to have the same effect, so you don't really necessarily need to jump into the edit tool. So we'll just drag this a bit towards the top. So that's how we can create a basic shape using cuts. And then we also saw how we could use the shape tool, and we use the rectangle tool. We can also do the same thing. For instance, if we wanted to add a cut that included a circle, we could just add a circular cut along this edge. So first let's we could escape out of this tool and select this shape, because this is the shape we want to cut, and then we could just go to cut, add, right click, select a circle, and we could just go over here, just draw a little circle, and then once we start cutting that by dragging to the left, we could cut halfway. We could even add geometry if we invert the cut like so. This is going to, instead of cutting, this is going to add this geometry, as you can see right here. So you can do things like buttons with this. So that's why it's called the cut/add tool. You can cut or you can add. So let's go ahead and do the cut just beside it, or opposite this guy. So let's click on this guy, go to cut, add, click on the circle, right click to draw the grid if you want, and we can click this edge and just drag the shape like so. And then once we have that, we just cut right through, or press V to cut through the object. Then we could just left click anywhere to validate. Now we have a nice shape with a hole and one we've added. Again, if you want to edit this tool anytime, click on show booleans, click the boolean, make sure on the move tool, you can just drag it like so. Or let's align this to the edge, and let's click on this boolean again and just drag this one to make sure it's aligned with the one on top, so we can actually have some nice symmetry. So that's a very quick, rough introduction to the Fluent tool. It's a very fun tool to use, and the more you use this tool, the more interesting it's going to get. In our next and future lessons, we're going to be creating more complex shapes, but this is the basic startup you can have, like cutting, adding, and then thinking about a creative shape like this one. So here, like for instance in this file, if I go back to my layers and turn this off and turn these two on, and say maybe let's turn this one on, and you can actually see the kind of shape you can create like so. So thanks very much for watching, guys. If you want access to this file, just let me know. If you need any specific kind of tutorials, just let me know and I'll be sure to hit you up. So peace.